Welcome to another episode of the Sleeper Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Lehman. Thanks for tuning in. First off, I just want to say thank you so much to all the new listeners tuning in. It really means a lot, the comments you guys are leaving, and welcome to the Sleeper Gang. So today we're going to be talking about Jonathon Brooks versus Trey Benson. Who should you be drafting in your rookie drafts, and who should you be targeting for their values right now? So first things first, the reason I wanted to make this show is because of the news that came out about Jonathon Brooks being on the PUP list. He can still come off the PUP list before the season starts. But one thing I want to make very clear is that him being on the PUP or starting out the season at a limited capacity was always what we were expecting from Jonathon Brooks. So this isn't something new. This is why he's going at the 8th pick in your rookie draft. Okay. If he was cleared to play right now, to go in training camp, then he would be going way higher than he is right now. We're talking before Roma Dunze. We're talking before Brock Bowers. Like people would be all in on him after in like the top 5 of their rookie drafts. I think we should all just don't overreact to the news that he's on the PUP because we don't even know if he's going to stay on it, first of all. But that's what we were expecting. We were expecting Jonathon Brooks to come into the season at a limited capacity. He's probably may not be playing at all to start the year. But the hope is that the level of talent that he has as he goes throughout the season, he gets more and more of a workload and he can become a workhorse back. So that's why Jonathon Brooks is as cheap as he is right now, because he's injured. We knew that already. This isn't news, okay? So don't overreact, but there may be people that are overreacting. So do with that what you will. So let's get into Jonathon Brooks' profile. So he's going to be 21 at the start of the NFL season, which is young for a running back. Definitely young for the running backs this year. I mean, you have a lot of guys who are 23, and I mean, Ray Davis is 24. I mean, a lot of older running backs this year. So definitely a good thing. He's 6 foot, 216 pounds. He ran a 4.45 40 time, not at the combine because he's injured, obviously, but this was before he had an ACL injury. A 4-star recruit by 24/7 Sports coming out of high school. And to start off his career at Texas, he sat behind Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson because Bijan Robinson was just that guy. Okay, so we're not going to, when we're looking at his stats, we're not going to really harp on the fact that he started off slow in his career. People were saying last year that Bijan Robinson was the best prospect since Saquon Barkley coming out of college. So that's the kind of prospect that Jonathon Brooks was sitting behind. So he redshirted his first year, but he broke out his sophomore season in a game against Kansas. He went 11 for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. He averaged 9.8 yards per attempt. Dude was cooking that day. In his first season without Bijan Robinson, he only played 10 games due to the ACL tear. So when we're looking at his stats, you really have to kind of do a deep dive of being like, let's not look at it for the whole year. He did this in 10 games, okay? So going into that, his stats. In 2021, his redshirt freshman year, he had 21 attempts for 143 yards and 1 touchdown. Nothing crazy. I mean, he was averaging 6.8 yards per attempt, which was great. But like I said, this year and in 2022, he was sitting behind Bijan Robinson. So in 2022, he had 30 attempts for 197 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think that's kind of a bigger deal, the fact that he was vulturing all those touchdowns from Bijan and Roschon Johnson. And then he added another touchdown through the air. So he kind of started to show that he can be a weapon in the air in his sophomore season. And then in 2023, his first year on his own without Bijan Robinson, he went for 187 attempts, 1,139 yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. And then catching the ball, he had 25 receptions for 286 yards and another touchdown. So a total of 11 touchdowns in 10 games. That's a phenomenal junior season. So yes, it took him a while to get going, but we kind of have to give him a break. He was behind Bijan. So really, you saw the talent, right? You saw the talent before he went down with an ACL. He was breaking the game. His draft capital, he got second round draft capital. He was drafted at pick number 46 to the Carolina Panthers. It's not the best. It's not the best position. It's not the best place for him to go to. It's not the best opportunity. I will say that he does have the opportunity to be the guy in for the Panthers. That's obvious. But it's not really, the offense is struggling. Like, we're not expecting them to just have this phenomenal year. They're adding more weapons there. Yeah. And Jonathon Brooks is a part of that, but it's going to take them some time to get in a rhythm. So with that being said, not the best place to go, but he does have an opportunity to be the lead back, to be a workhorse. And I think that's why we're all very interested in Jonathon Brooks. So his 2024 projection, this is from Mike Clay with ESPN. He has him going for 183 attempts for 837 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. And he also has him going through the air 35 receptions for 257 yards and 1 touchdown. That would be the number 20 running back in PPR this year in 2024. So you're talking about over 1,000 or just under 1,000 scrimmage yards, around 1,000 scrimmage yards for him in his rookie season coming off an ACL. If that is what happens here, so we care very much about rookie season stats because that's going to project. You can predict how these players are going to perform the rest of their fantasy football career based off their rookie season. I'm not sure if he will actually finish as the number 20 running back. I think this is mostly assuming that he comes off of that ACL injury pretty quickly, but still, rookie running backs that have the potential to break out in their rookie season are gold. They are gold. Those are the running backs that break out most of the time. So those are the guys you want. You want the guys who start off slow, right? So it's not a huge problem that he's coming off an ACL injury. It's going to make it more difficult for him, obviously, but that's what we want anyway. We want a rookie who's coming in a little bit slower to start the year, but when we're going into our championship, they're at full speed. They're starting to get the workload. They're starting to get more reps. They're comfortable scoring more touchdowns, getting more fantasy points. So number 20 running back in PPR, that's a big deal for a rookie running back. All right, so let's get into Trey Benson. Trey Benson is going to be 22 years old at the start of the NFL season. Interestingly enough, he is also 6 foot 216 pounds. That is the same exact size as Jonathon Brooks. But I will say, in the pictures that I've seen of both of them, Trey Benson looks way more built. I don't know what it is. I don't know if anybody else thinks the same thing. I don't know if it's just because Jonathon Brooks kind of holds a lot of the weight in certain different areas, but Trey Benson looks way more muscular in my opinion. So same size. Trey Benson ran a 4.39 40 time at the combine, and that gave him a 9.76 relative athletics score, which basically just means that he's in the 97th percentile for running backs ever drafted. He was also a 4-star recruit by 24/7 Sports coming out of high school. He does have some serious injury history with, an ACL, torn ACL. He's not perfect either, guys. I mean, these are the running backs you want in this draft, but both of them have some injury history. Now, Trey Benson has shown after 2020, he's had a couple years of some phenomenal production, and that's why we're talking about him right now. So, to be honest with you, I think when it comes to the injury history, you might feel a little more confident in Trey Benson because he's already shown that he has the burst and the production after coming off of an ACL injury. Just something to keep in mind. So his stats in 2021 at Oregon, he did absolutely nothing. Did absolutely nothing that year. He was coming off of those injuries, and his Oregon career was basically non-existent. In 2022, he went to FSU and he had 154 attempts for 990 yards on the ground with 9 touchdowns. And then he also added 13 receptions for 144 yards in the air. So phenomenal. He came into FSU and just blew it up his sophomore year. And then his junior year in 2023, he had 156 attempts for 905 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground. 14 touchdowns on the ground. That's huge. He had 20 receptions for 227 yards and another touchdown through the air. So 15 total touchdowns his junior year. I mean, that production profile looks a little bit better than Jonathon Brooks. We won't get into the comparison yet, but yeah, it's looking interesting, guys. So Mike Clay has a 2024 projection for Trey Benson. 115 attempts for 506 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, with 22 receptions for 153 yards in the air and 1 touchdown. And that would be the number 38 running back in PPR. Now, who is the better pick in your rookie draft, right? To be honest with you, I think if we're talking value, I think it's very obviously Trey Benson, okay? Now, the reason I say that is just because he's cheaper, right? But Trey Benson has had a better production profile. Now, he's 1 year older. That's one thing with Trey Benson. But, and Trey Benson also had 3rd round draft capital, and he was picked at number 66, went to the Arizona Cardinals. So, in my opinion, that's a great situation. I mean, it may not be great his rookie season because he's going to be behind James Conner. James Conner is old. I mean, all it takes is for him to get injured like he does every single year, and Trey Benson gets an opportunity and he's gone. He's got the job. So, yeah, man, I really think that we're sleeping on the fact that Trey Benson's opportunity with the Cardinals may be just as good, especially if you start factoring in that Jonathon Brooks is going to take some time to come off the ACL, and you're going to have Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders with the opportunity to kind of show something to start the year and gain some coach trust. It's a little bit concerning. I can't lie. Like, I have Jonathon Brooks in a couple leagues, and it is a little concerning. This is a very running back depleted draft. So these are the guys you want, but that kind of shows you just how terrible this running back class was this year, because these are the top guys, and we're talking about major injuries to both of them. Both of them have dealt with major injuries. So yeah, I think the one that you want for the value is probably going to be Trey Benson, but the one that I would want, if it's in a vacuum, right? If it's in a vacuum, we're not talking value at all, then it's still Jonathon Brooks. Okay. It's still Jonathon Brooks. You could, like we've talked about, you could make an argument that Trey Benson is the better running back. Okay. You can. Like, his film is absolutely phenomenal. Trey Benson is athletic. He's got the size, the speed. He's got the production. I mean, yeah, if you want to take Trey Benson over Jonathon Brooks, take Trey Benson. All right. Like, go ahead. Like, it's not that serious, guys. Like, it's not that serious. Like, we're having fun here, but I will say, in my opinion, Jonathon Brooks is a better prospect. Okay. That end of story. If Jonathon Brooks ACL is fine, then he is the better prospect. And he is the one that you should want if we're drafting them in a vacuum. Okay. If we're picking them in a vacuum. But the value on Trey Benson, the fact that you can get him in the 2nd round instead of the 1st, that's massive, guys. Like, if you're taking Trey Benson at like the 203 in your drafts, yeah, like, I love that. Like, that's great value. In other years, like, you aren't able to get the 2nd best running back in the class in the early to mid 2nd round of your rookie drafts. That just doesn't happen. So yeah, I think Trey Benson is kind of getting slept on a little bit. I think his opportunity, most importantly, is being slept on. I mean, even Mike Clay only has him going for 500 yards, which I guess would just be assuming that James Conner is healthy for the entire year. I think that's probably what is being assumed. But we all know James Conner gets injured so easily. Like, it happens. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer, guys. It's Jonathon Brooks is the better prospect. End of story. And if we find out that Jonathon Brooks is taken off the pup before August 30th, before the start of the season, then Jonathon Brooks just became a steal at the end of the first round. Okay? Jonathon Brooks is going to light it up for fantasy if he's healthy this year. If you've been listening to my previous episodes, then you know I have Jonathon Brooks higher, right? He's a better prospect. But I just wanted to kind of go over this real quick because I do think it's interesting to just look at Trey Benson in the light of, there was a time before the draft where a lot of people had Trey Benson as their running back one. So don't just be sleeping on the situation just because he's not as flashy right now because he doesn't have the starting job. Yeah, take the value on Trey Benson. That's the point of this show. Take the value on Trey Benson in your rookie drafts or go after him in some trades. Like, now might not be the time. Now is not the time to trade for rookies, right? But I'm just saying, keep an eye on them because their value will fall. There will be some people that didn't see the immediate, instant gratification of scoring fantasy points. And when that happens, people are going to start trying to shop. Maybe people are going to try to shop Trey Benson or Jonathon Brooks. So I think Trey Benson might just be the one that's not as flashy, that people are more willing to just be like, hey, I'm a little nervous on this prospect. He's behind James Conner. Yeah, he's going to be behind James Conner. All right. But go after him. Try to get him for even a second if you can, a future second, because it's going to pay off. It's these guys should not be in the second round. The reason they're in the second round is because this is such a terrible running back class. It's gotten a lot of shade, and there were a lot of wide receivers and quarterbacks in this class. So that's why you're able to get him in the second round. So yeah, I would say go after him. Just go after him, Go after these guys. These are guys that are going to be staples for your dynasty rosters, and they're just fun guys to have on your team and watch develop. Tired of spending big money on jerseys? Check out our limited edition hand-drawn design t-shirts that feature your favorite NFL players. These shirts are super unique and way cheaper than buying a jersey. They're perfect for game day, draft parties, or even just hanging out. Don't miss your chance to snag one. Use promo code FOOTBALL for 10% off at sleeperdynasty.com. That's going to wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a 5-star rating or review. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on future episodes. It really means a lot, and it's a great way to support the show. Also, make sure to follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sleeper Dynasty. Peace.